Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kirill and I am with the SMPL group, where we focus on digital entrepreneurs, whether from the perspective of taxes, law, or accounting. And we also work with investors. In the last approximately 2 to 3 years, I have met personally with at least 1,000 investors. We discussed their problems, and I counted it. It is really over 1,000 people. And since there are over 1,000 pieces, over 1,000 different investment theses, I would say that during this time, I have developed something I call an investment bullshit radar, which we often discuss with clients regarding how they invest, where they invest, what their reasoning is, and so on. During that time, I have developed something like an investment trouble detector because certain things repeat very often. It has been long enough for me to see the results. So today I put down some indicators on paper based on a feeling, which typically signify that this will be an investment problem. We'll go through them one by one. Let's get started. The first indicator of an investment problem is, dude, this is great. If someone is selling you an investment in superlatives, basically, a friend or someone comes to you and starts sharing their investment thesis or some investment decision. And after a while, you realize that they are not sharing information with you, but rather trying to sell it to you. That moment is a sign of trouble. From that sale, the person may not gain anything material, but typically, the fact that they are selling you something means that they are not selling it to you, but rather to themselves. That they are convincing themselves that the investment thesis was good, and at the moment I see someone who is in love with their asset, it means this is the best cryptocurrency there is because it has something. The world is usually much more complex, and this is typically a red flag. What needs to be said? Don't confuse this with having a too good to be true opportunity. One thing is that I have some standard investment opportunity that I have fallen in love with, and I am being uncritically bullish about is unnecessarily uncritical, and that investment thesis may be good. I might even be right, but that infatuation is the problem. The second thing is, if I have that good to be true opportunity and I respond to it appropriately. I have typically encountered quite a few too good to be true opportunities, whether in terms of some tax structures where I think, how does this work? We have discovered something incredibly interesting, or in legal options, or even in investing, where something has an incredibly good return and at the same time seems very low risk to me. My appropriate reaction to that is to ask where the problem is, like what am I not seeing, and essentially to pay much more attention to where I might have overlooked something. That's fine. It happens. Too good to be true. Opportunities exist. But the moment you fall in love with that too good to be true opportunity, even if it is indeed too good to be true, it generates problems. Because then you overlook things, you become emotionally invested, which we will discuss further. The second typical indicator of a problem is when someone starts making investment decisions that have the potential to drastically worsen their life. Typically, someone invests with what they can afford to invest, and most investment decisions are such that they do not have a significant impact on your life in terms of ruining it. Sometimes it happens that someone makes decisions that can significantly worsen their standard of living, or even the standard of living of the people around him, like some family, wife, and so on. This generates problems. Sometimes it works out, and there are nice stories about someone selling all their assets and putting it into Bitcoin, but you just end up infinitely rich. It can happen, but on average, it generates unhappy people. Just the fact that I know it will drastically worsen my life emotionally engages me in such a way that the moment things don't go well, I have no chance of making good investment decisions. And that's because I'm no longer playing for money, but I'm playing for whether my wife will leave me or whether my children will have to go to a nature school and things like that. It's not just that I lose the entire edge, but it's some kind of opposite edge, my disadvantage. That I can't make good decisions because I'm just terribly stuck in the investment. Another such red flag that I see very often on Twitter is categorical statements regarding risk. If someone says these are the only risks I bear, the risks are exactly these and nothing more, this is the average trouble generator. If I have too strict an opinion on how I bear specific risks, it often means that I do not see all the risks. Very often it means that I am either hiding many risks under one and do not see the complexity, or I do not see the risks at all. Typically, for example, in crypto, I earn some yield on the exchange, and the only thing I risk is that the stablecoin drops. I might also be risking that the stock market will crash. I might also be risking that nettable coin will be frozen. And in fact, there are typically many more risks than some people share. And this is a red flag because it often means that in the long run, it will punish that person as they do not even realize how complex the risks are. If I think about them and see this, then it will be the only correct perspective. And if they list fewer risks than you can think of, it typically means that in the long run, that person will generate a problem. Another great indicator of an investment problem is importing through 3 steps. This means that the world is extremely complex, and at the moment when someone's investment thesis does not rely on what already exists, but on the fact that President Biden will be elected now, it will mean that he will decide this way or that. And this will lead to investors reacting in this way, and that is what I am speculating on. Those probabilities multiply with each other, and essentially, it is such an extremely complex thesis that it will rarely be true. Actually, I am multiplying the dependency of certain steps that need to happen and which are not necessarily even required by law. That means sometimes I don't know, with some cryptocurrencies, if this event happens, then this event must happen. But in our world, it doesn't work that way, like in the external world. So there might be some political influence, some geopolitical factors, or simply how a central bank decides and similar things. The chaos is so great that if someone says, well, this will only happen, this, and this, and then I will be the biggest winner, the probability is so incredibly low on average that it will more likely result in some investment disaster, or that person might even make money, but it will be completely by chance. Another such yellow flag, which is not quite a red flag, but sometimes it does ring a bell, consists of 2 assumptions. And the first assumption is that people will, and if this assumption that people will want something or people will do something does not stem from what already exists. For example, people will die, so funeral services will probably exist. That is a reasonable thesis. But if people are not doing something yet and someone says that people will do something specific in the future, and I bet on that, then this is a kind of yellow flag because it's extremely difficult to hit. Whether people will, I don't know, use touch phones, or if there are just really very few people who get it right. And when I look back at some statements that were made somewhere about what people will do, either that person completely misses what those people will do, or they will just be in cities, or on the other hand, will everyone be like they are in home offices? It's just too complex. And at the same time, it often doesn't align with the timing. This means that people might, I don't know, be driving autonomous cars, but maybe 20 years earlier than expected or 50 years later. Yes, that means timing still plays a role, and this is one of the yellow flags. Another yellow flag is that they have money. So this means the assumption that this company has so much money that it can afford to, I don't know, build a new social network. This company has so much money that it can simply afford some inefficiency. This statement is actually like a long run. It seems to me like a lot of self-bullshitting, which is rather not true. Not everything can be bought with money, and when someone says they can afford this, it typically means they can't afford it even more. And the last very common red flag is if someone has factual inaccuracies on which their thesis strongly relies. This means that when someone says, this is good because, and then provides a reason, that is somewhat vague, it is often inaccurately stated, which frequently undermines the thesis. If these are really fundamental things on which some of my investment decisions are based, and I just made a mistake, I don't know, a slip up or something like that, then it's not entirely optimal, and very often it's a red flag that the person hasn't given enough. He didn't really dedicate much time to the due diligence and doesn't understand it well enough to be confident in his investment. This is everything I wanted to tell you. And since I am sure that there are plenty of different gamblers and speculators among you who enjoy losing money, I would appreciate it if you could share your favorite red flag in the comments, one that you fall for and where you like to lose money. Thank you very much for watching until the end. In any case, think for yourself. No one can teach you that. Goodbye.